Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Kneon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And the destruction of video game journalism continues. We're gonna talk about this. I missed this. This was a couple of days ago. They put out on Aftermath, which is ironically run by a bunch of displaced video game journalists. But yeah, gamers group websites are not only laying a bunch of people off, which we've covered, but apparently their sites are sort of in a holding pattern. They're being mothballed.
Oh, and Mary Sue's one of them.
Mary Sue's one of them. Now, just like a day or two ago, you said to me out of the blue, you're like, hey, I noticed that Rachel Leishman is writing most of the articles now.
I know. Usually
we
went to the Mary Sue, there was like different authors, but it was like her and like one of the
Princess
other
Weeks
people.
and some of these other people.
It was like mostly her.
Yes. So you have to wonder, Rachel Leishman, there we go. You have to wonder if she's the only full-timer left, or the only one willing to work cheap enough,
I don't know. She's like one of the editors or something.
Yeah. So she is apparently manning the ship. She's manning the ship.
It's going down. She's the one that's playing the violin as it's going down.
Right? She's manning the ship more or less by herself, but there are a bunch of other sites that the same thing is happening to. So let's take a look at this article from Luke Plunkett. I think he used to be on Kotaku. I
know the name. I recognize the name.
Yeah. In Aftermath, like, look, I said before, I might not agree with these games journalists on everything, right? More often than not, especially if they're super political, I probably don't agree with that, right? But I will give them props. They went out and they did start their own website.
Yes, because we said if you want to do your own thing, and they did. So
yeah, and they did. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. Guys, we'll get woohoo if you do.
Woohoo!
So we're gonna back this up a little bit and kind of talk about the bigger picture as to where things are going, so you have some context here. So websites are dying. That is the long and short of it. Mostly news websites, and a big part of it is Google. Google decided we had a number of updates over the last. It was supposed to be the helpful content update or the human content update, ironically enough, and it rolled out in waves. And the first wave, everybody took a hit to their traffic. The second or third wave is when they added the AI search. So now when you do a Google search, websites aren't the first thing that come up. It's Google's AI answer pulled from websites. And if you're lucky, they might link to your website, but chances are pretty good nobody's actually going to go to your website because they don't need to, right? So that, coupled with the venture capital running out, the ad market collapsing, it's been a very, very bad year for anybody who runs a blog, a website, any kind of a news site. And we can attest to that. We actually own several, and it's been brutal, man. Some of the sites are down 90+%.
It's bad. And we've mentioned it before. Except for a couple of people who I think are, playing in and paying in or whatever. Everybody else is getting wiped out.
Yeah, there are a couple of bigger organizations that do seem to still get some traffic, but I don't even think they're getting what they used to get. But they're still getting more than most other people. But most niche websites, especially in the blogosphere, the geekosphere, they've been obliterated. A lot of people have just moved on to YouTube, or they've moved on to podcasts, or X, or Substack or whatever. They're not going to these websites like they used to, right? So there's a whole bunch of things going on. Plus, a lot of these games journos, nobody trusts them. They're not. That's a big part of it. So they already had that working against them. And then the advertising revenue dropped off. And then Google the kill shot was AI search. And I can tell you right now, if you don't have a website, you're like, golly gee, I think it'd be a good time to start a video game news website. I tell you to not even bother. Don't even bother. This I thought was interesting. There's an online education company called Chegg. They're actually suing Google because they said the AI has lifted their content and basically just pushed all the traffic to Google. That's
what they do. I mean, if you search anything, it gives you their AI snippet, and sometimes it'll link to a site, but usually, you can go look for more information, but that usually answers your question. You don't have to do anything else. Yeah. And they get that answer by scraping everybody else's sites they used to send you to, or at least linking to that site. They're not doing it anymore. And this is like a textbook company. So they're like stealing stuff out of there. That's I'm sorry, scraping.
Scraping, and that's what they're doing. So a lot of these blogs are getting scraped, and it's like, you want to know how to beat a boss in a game, they're going to give you a 1-paragraph overview, correct or incorrect. And also Ganon will now be a black lesbian for some reason. But what I'm saying is, like, they're not going to websites for a variety of reasons. So that's kind of where we're at. And what happened was we had this boom, and it was definitely artificial, where all these media companies were going for insane amounts of money, hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars in some cases, and all these studios were scooping up nerd sites.
Yeah, and we should have got bigger years ago. They would have scooped up one of our sites, and we could have had money.
I know, right? You just cash out. But like what they were doing, and it was really kind of insidious, and this is why you see a lot of these mainstream outlets not calling out the crap that the companies do, because in some cases they're owned by those companies, right? So like Nerdist is owned by Legendary, and a bunch of these sites were owned by CBS. You had a whole sheet. Now none of it matters because like almost all the stuff has collapsed. But the sad thing is most of them started as independently owned and operated websites. And then they got to a certain size, and then the company would come along with a bunch of money and say, "Hey, we're going to buy you out."
Pretty much.
And that's what happened. So anyway, gamers' websites aren't just laying off workers. Entire sites are being mothballed, according to Aftermath.
So they have a list of which ones are getting mothballed?
Yeah, we're going to go down the list here. There's a bunch. Okay. Well, they have Dot Esports, WGTC.
Oh, we got this covered.
Yeah, we got is that what it is?
Yeah.
We got this covered? Okay. I didn't recognize
Pretty sure.
Pro Game Guides, Twinfinite, Prima Games, which also does strategy guides. Destructoid, Destructoid used to be my go-to video game website. Like if I was going to visit like one. Yeah, if I'd visit one website, you probably remember the robot. If I'd visit one website or forum, I always went to Destructoid. I freaking love Destructoid. And then for a while, I haven't been there in probably 2 years, but last time I checked, it was just like they were letting people post their own blog, kind of like Tumblr, because they didn't want to pay content creators or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, but then in that case, you let people post their own blogs, you're opening yourself up to a lot of potential problems there.
Yes, you are. And that's a whole issue too. The Mary Sue, which started out actually being more about just a female-focused geek blog, and then it just went heavy into the politics. AOTF. Yeah,
that's all it is now.
So. Yeah, that's all it is. It's Rachel Leishman's personal blog. Anyway, they said on Aftermath, over the last 2 months, both current and former gamers employees tell us things have gotten worse. Successive waves of layoffs have hit the network in February, March, and April of this year, impacting not just many of the site's full-time editorial staff, but people higher up at gamers as well, including, we're told, a large part of the company's SEO team. Well, what's the point?
Yeah, you don't need it anymore.
There's no such thing anymore.
Or they're like, okay, well, we don't need the SEO team because we'll just pay Google.
I could be too. You know what I'm saying? But like, what's the point? Like all these SEO companies, they spend all years being like, well, here's how you get your site to rank. It doesn't matter how high your site ranks. If the AI snippet is always above your content, guess what people are going to pick, right? It says, as well as those employed in positions like marketing, content strategy, and assignment editors. It sounds to me like they're winding it down. Yeah. That's not good. Former employees tell us that using the network's Slack user base as a metric, there were approximately 320 workers registered on the company's account in late 2024, a number that by this week has dwindled to 260. Of those remaining, a large number are freelance workers who say they have not only been kept in the dark about the dramatic changes, receiving no notice or announcements, but are contracted to sites that don't appear to have operating budgets for the immediate future.
Oh, great.
Oh.
That's not good.
Oh, that is not good.
No.
You guys better make sure you get paid. I'm just saying.
We've been there. So we're not saying that as like, neener. We're saying that as we've been there. So
what often happens if you're a freelancer, you're a contractor, you're your own business, if they stop paying the bills, they'll just be like, oh yeah, get in line behind all the other people we owe money to.
Yeah. Now, see, when we knew that Google was going to take out the websites, we actually just laid the people off and said, because we let them know ahead of time that what was going on. Like everybody was kept in the loop of what was going on. We never hid anything. And then when we finally just had to do it, and I hated doing it, everybody was paid in full, and we even sent them out holiday bonuses anyway. We did. So we didn't have to, but we did because we've been there. We wouldn't do that to somebody because we know what it's like and it sucks.
Yeah, we tried to be as fair as we could, but I mean, I saw the iceberg last year, and I actually started, and I felt bad, but I'm like, I started to see the revenue every month and the views start to go down, and it was like, yeah, okay, something's up, something is up, and then I started comparing notes with other site owners, and then we realized it was this Google update, and it's like, yeah, it's not going to get better. So, yeah, I kind of had to preemptively let a bunch of people go, but I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like I can't pay if we're not making money on the website. I can't pay you, and that's what's going on here. It doesn't matter how big you are. You can be a bit, quote unquote, big publisher like Gamers Group and still like come up short. And I know a lot of their sites, they'll post on social media, like on Twitter or something. Nobody interacts. Well,
no, that just tells me that they either no one cares now, or more than likely they bought their social media followers and they weren't real to begin with.
Yeah. And that's just it, right? And we know the end's coming for some of these other sites too, or it's getting close to it because, I think it was IGN or Kotaku, they were told to basically just do game guides and not do any politics or whatever because, but they open themselves up to lawsuits too, right? They do this. Like these journalists, they shoot their mouths off. And now Kotaku's looking at getting sued, I guess, too, over the Alyssa Mercante stuff and all that. So it's like, it's insane. So they said we've been shown screenshots of internal Slack messages frequently rejecting the workers' pitches at some of gamers' biggest websites by citing budget constraints, which recently laid off workers. Speculate as part of a wider cost-cutting measure. Freelancers for gamers are paid by the post and must pitch stories to editors. That's actually normal. After this week's layoffs, The Escapist, which lost a number of full-time staff, is mostly now just posting Roblox guides. Wow.
Oh.
Wow. Destructoid has lost several key writers and is now being updated with stories mostly produced, we're told, by former Esports staff who've been moved over, with Esports now updating at a much slower pace than previously.
So they just shifted them.
Yeah, how much do they want for Destructoid?
But we're not buying Destructoid.
I know. It's one of those things where it's like, I feel bad because I used to spend so much time on that site. Twinfinite, which also lost staff, was last updated on March 27th, while Attack of the Fanboy. Oh, is that what that is? Attack of the Fanboy.
Okay.
Once a nerd culture site, but which had recently pivoted to celebrity gossip and politics.
Oh, same as Mary Sue.
Same as Mary Sue. Okay, this is started. Yeah, because that's what people are looking for, right? So here's the thing. All this stuff is kind of dovetailing. I think as we've seen a loss of interest in nerd stuff because these kinds of people basically moved into the nerd space and chased off the nerds, or we had a lot of tourists that weren't really like, oh, I like the Marvel and the Dungeons and Dragons stuff. I don't know anything about it, but I like to talk about it, pretend like I do. Then they got bored and they moved on, or they
I like to talk about it, pretend like I do, and police it so that people that were real fans can't be part of it because they might have a penis.
Right. God, they haven't seen a new post.
Or they won't recognize my imaginary one.
My imaginary penis.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like a book. That sounds like that would make
my imaginary penis.
My imaginary penis. My dream dick. Anyway, they haven't seen a new post since March 28th. Siliconera and the Mary Sue, also affected by layoffs and resignations, are both down to just a handful of news stories a day.
Well, there's a handful of people writing too, because I noticed, like I said the other day, and I didn't know anything about this. I said to you, they must be cutting or something, because it was, if you go to the main page, it was almost all her. Yeah. Now when I try to look at the site, they want me to to remove my ad blocker to even enter.
Yeah. 0 comments on most of these. 10 best fantasy books with lesbians ranked. Hot damn.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, we got one new person. Okay. So, but like you go to the main page and most of these are, man, it's like really slow because it's trying to block my ad blocker. Rachel Leischman.
I told you.
Leischman.
I told you.
Here's one.
There's a couple people with some other things, but almost all her. And I'm like, people don't like her to begin with, and then when you make the whole site her, it's just like, well, that's just it's just a personal blog. It's one voice. Not that there was much of a differentiation of voices there anyway, but
Miralax experience. Up to 60% of diabetics experience constipation. That's the ad running on here.
You can take Miralax, or you can just read the Mary Sue.
Or you can just read the Mary Sue.
Will give you explosive diarrhea.
Have a big shit. Take a big shit. Yeah. So in that regard, the Marriott, all these sites are basically, like you said, they've been relegated to being just personal blogs, because if you only got one or two people writing and they're only putting out a couple of stories a day, that's a blog. That's not a regular news site. That is a blog, right? A news site, you got to crank out like 10 to 20 articles a day. Former staff tell us that despite laying off successive waves of writers throughout 2025, Gamers has been trying to recruit writers from regions like India, the Philippines, and the Balkans.
So translation, they're trying to recruit writers that are cheap or know how to use AI.
Or both. Yeah. And I noticed that on Fandom Wire too. I mean, a lot of the names on there, I'm like, yeah, I am reasonably sure this person's not living in the US.
Well, there are, like, I know a couple of Disney sites, and I'm not going to say what they are, but they have a bunch of people on there that I think are either AI or they're definitely not, in America. But yeah. I think it's mostly just AI generated shit.
Yeah. I mean, because the thing is that, like, and that's what's going to be so weird about all of this is, like, Google is basically, it's going to be like AI inception. It's like people are going to generate AI assisted or AI written articles, and then Google's going to cite that with AI.
I know. It's like, this is the bot theory. It's all bots.
It's dead internet theory. Yeah. I mean, it really is. It said former staff speculate this could be because workers in India are paid less than workers from the US. Well, when they all want union, they want to be in a union and they want like ridiculous money. And these sites are probably, if the situation is as bad for them as it is for other people I've talked to, and like, we've talked with the owner of Giant Freaking Robot before, and his site was doing really, really well. And then it just stopped. Like you can't afford to pay people anything. I mean, some of these sites can't even afford to pay hosting.
No, and that's what we ran into. Like we were doing really, really good. And then we were able to pay everybody and it was great. And then hosting and our hosting was very expensive. And then, it just died.
Yeah.
Gone.
I had to downgrade our hosting because I'm like, I can't justify what we're spending in hosting. I mean, at one point, our hosting bill on one of our websites was like more than our mortgage. And I'm like,
yeah, and like we're talking like thousands and thousands of views a day, and it went from that a massive amount of views a day to like, you're lucky if you get a couple thousand a day kind of thing.
Yeah, and if it's that way for us, it's that way for a lot. And I have been comparing notes, and for most of these geek websites, anything in the geek genre, the niche genre, that has been the case. And the reason they're pivoting to the celebrity gossip shit is because that's what's trending.
Right. And even then you're not going to get much compared to what you did before.
Nope.
And the kicker is like they do snippets and they do the AI stuff and then Google keeps all the money.
Yes. And because
they're not sending you to their site.
That's the point. Like Google, if people are like, well, Google, why wouldn't they send traffic to our site? Because they have to share ad revenue. I'm like, yeah, share. They share ad revenue if they send traffic to your site. They keep all of it if they keep it where they want you to see it. Yeah. Right. So they said it's accurate to say that entire chunks of the network have just been shut down at this point. Others we've spoken to wonder if the layoffs continued, coupled with the silence from the company's leadership, could indicate Gamers is about to be sold or is looking for a sale. Well, if you're looking to sell it, you probably want to give it some curbside appeal. Mm-hmm. So you want to.
I don't know who's going to buy it. No one's going to buy.
Who's going to buy these sites?
I mean, if you buy these stuff, then you're just dumb because, quite frankly, it's just throwing good money after bad.
Yeah,
they're not worth it now.
No, that's the thing. Like these sites at one point in time, they probably paid hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to get them into the network, and now they're worthless. Mm-hmm. They really are, because if the site can't generate any meaningful revenue, what is the fucking point? Yeah. I mean, what is the point? Right?
There's no point buying anything.
From a business perspective, I'm not saying, well, I like to put my opinions out into the world and make my voice heard. Well, that's fine. You can do that on literally any free hosted service out there. Go Tweet more, or Blue Sky, or whatever the hell you want to do. But to actually pay for the hosting and all that, you got to have some revenue coming in. This person said, this is another former Gamers writer. Almost everyone at my site has been laid off. The most recent wave happened this morning. Entire websites like The Escapist or Twinfinite are just sitting dormant. We're all speculating they're going to sell. Right now, operations have ground to a halt.
I don't think they can sell to anybody.
Yeah, you needed to sell it like 2 years ago. I mean, that's the truth. And we saw this. A lot of these they actually, Gamers, I think, was the one that went in and bought a whole bunch of the websites, the gaming websites, and they shut a bunch down. And I think they just don't know what to do. I think they're kind of like, they don't know what to do. It's like, well, you need to pivot the video, and you didn't do it. So this was last year at this time they reached out, and these were all the sites they had back then. And
oh yeah,
they own a lot of websites. Actually, the one that owns the most, though, is Valnet. Valnet owns a
they
ton.
own quite a few, yeah.
But it's the same thing. It's just basically a content farm at this point. And
are you allowed to say anything? Be
Oh my
careful,
God.
because their lawyers might threaten you.
you're
again.
slandering Valnet. Our wonderful Valnet. Yeah, they're literally paying people like hardly anything to write. I think a lot of their
That's what we're
articles
hearing.
That's what we're hearing.
I can't speak to that.
I'm saying just in general, like most of these websites, unless you know who's actually running them, it's like they're paying a couple bucks an article, maybe. They're probably outsourcing it overseas. They're using AI assistants, anything to churn out content. But like they used to use Facebook and Twitter to drive traffic, and that doesn't work anymore. So it's just all these sites all of them are gonna implode very soon. And then what's going to happen is, and this is why they hate YouTubers so much and they hate podcasters so much, because they ate their lunch basically. But that's all that's going to be left, or going to be, podcast personalities, people who have their own private blogs or whatever. And, but these corporate geek sites, they're done. It's over.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Are we going to wrap it up?
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. We'll talk later.
Bye.